variables. As if you will have two variables, you can make use of this one in your analysis. A monotonic relationship between two variables is one in which either as the value of the variable increases, so does the other value or other variable also increase. Or if the value of one variable increases, the other value decreases. So this will be the relations that can be established. One value increases, the second value increases, while another one is if one value increases, the other value decreases or vice versa. In a correlated data, the change in the magnitude of one variable is associated with the change in the magnitude of another variable. So there is an association between the two, either in the same or in opposite direction. So that is what I told you. If both increases, that is one direction, and they can be in opposite direction wherein one will increase, the other one will decrease. Now, a linear relationship between two variables is a special case of monotonic relationship. Most often the term correlation is used in the context of such a linear relationship between two continuous random variables known as a person product moment correlation, which is commonly abbreviated as, or you may not, it is abbreviated as or represented as small r. Now, the small r, as you can see in the formula, is the correlation coefficient, or it is also known as the person correlation coefficient. The based from the formula wherein you have the summation of x sub I minus bar x times y sub I minus bar y all over the square root of the summation of x sub I minus bar x squared times the summation of y sub I minus y bar y raised to the squared. So we have, you can see that the xi values are the x variable in a sample, while the bar x is the mean of the values of the x variable. The y1 values of the y variable in a sample, and y bar is the mean of the values of the y variable. Okay, you can see in your blackboard another formula for correlation coefficient. When you have the r is equal to n, summation of xy minus summation of x times summation of y all over the square root of n summation of x squared minus summation of x raised to the power of 2 multiplied by n summation of y squared minus summation of y raised to the power of 2. That is different. So I want you to screenshot the second formula because that is the formula that I want you to use, because that formula is related to regression, the next topic that we will have. So if you will be using that formula, what we can see, because you can have one problem which will ask for correlation and regression. If you will use the first formula, you can still use it. You will arrive at the same answer. But if I will ask for another question in terms of regression, you will have to make another table so that you can apply the formula of regression. While if you will use the second formula, the same formula or the same table for the first formula can be used in the solution of the regression, because the regression formula will have the same components of your correlation coefficient. So it screenshot na kay it was not included when I uploaded the first formula. So that is the most important formula because the table based from that formula will be the same table that we are going to use for the regression. Okay? So screenshot na ninyo? Wala. Ya pa nga, basta mo gamit mo ring usa, it will be a longer process because you will have to make another table for the regression. And when I give the test, I will give you only one problem asking for correlation and regression. So it will come out shorter if you will use the second formula. So you have the same description then for the R as the correlation coefficient. You will have it there N as the number of samples that you will have. Okay, you can see the graph of the correlation coefficient. It is to find how strong a relationship is between the variables. So in the first graph, you can see that in the first graph, you can see that the arrow is going up, and then it is specified to be, if you, and that is just an example, it is specified that the correlation coefficient of the first graph is a positive correlation. Why is it positive? Because it is going up to the right. So it is positive correlation, which shows that what if one variable is increasing, the other variable is also increasing. Now the next graph, are you following in your LMS? The next graph,
Yes,
are you following?
ma'am.
Are you following?
Yes,
Ma'am.
miss.
Okay. So in the next graph, wherein you have an example na r is equal to 0, it means that if you will get an answer of r equals 0, there is no correlation established between the two variables. Now, another example, the third graph there is, we are considering the correlation coefficient as equal to negative 0.4. The first one is positive 0.4. Now, if you will analyze it, it is a negative correlation in the sense that your arrow is downwards to the right. It's downwards to the right. And if you will, when you analyze your value of the correlation that you will get, remember that your R value for the correlation will be at a range of 1, -1, and 1, which means that if you will, when you solve for your correlation, your answer is more than 1, you will get R is equal to 10. That is a wrong data that is being applied to your formula, or there is a wrong computations, because the answer that you will get here is only between -1 and +1. So in the first example where we have 0.4, that is positive, that is less than 1. So there is a correlation that will be established. Now the correlation, since it is -1, between -1 and 1, you try to describe the correlation with respect to the value. So that means it is 0.1 to +1. So 0.1 correlation, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, 1. That one for the positive side. And then if it will be on the negative side, it will be minus zero point 0.1, minus zero point 0.2, minus zero point 0.3 until you will have a negative 1. Now, even though you know it to be a positive correlation, if it is directed upwards to the right when you make your graph, which shows that if one variable is increasing, the other variable is also increasing. But you are going to specify as to what positive correlation. Is it strong positive correlation? Is it, you can have the three, you can have a range of values. Now, if you will have it strong, you can consider 0.7, Peter said 0.7891. If you will get an answer of positive 0.7, 0.8, 0.91, you can consider that one as a strong positive correlation. If you will have it between, unsa may atong mid, now, if you will have the lowest, minus zero point 0.1, minus zero point 0.1, we'll have it positive lang. 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, up to 0.4, no? 5, 6. We're considered strong as 7, 8, 9, and 1. So we can consider 0.5, 0.6, or 0.4, 0.5, 0.6 as, if we will have it as zero point 0.1, it can be considered as one weak positive correlation. And after we will have 0.4, we'll have 0.5, 0.6. Then we had considered 0.7 as true, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, it will be the middle part so that we can consider only 0.8, 0.9, 1 as positive correlation. So again, we have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. We can consider it as positive, one weak positive correlation. Kung sa may sunod sa weak, we will have it 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. How will you describe it if it is not weak? How will we do it? Weak and strong positive correlation. Then at the middle part, we can have it as what? What term
Intermediate, ma'am.
is? Huh? Dili. It will
Intermediate.
be, dili. It will be weak, strong, and what is the best word for that? You have the weak correlation. He says, no, never mind. We will have it. It will be better if you will have it. It will be easier to be one when you make your conclusion. So if you will get positive 0.1 to zero point 0.5, we will consider it as a weak correlation. And then if you will have it as 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 9, 0.91, we can consider it as strong positive correlation. The same will be true if you will get a negative value. Negative 0.1 to zero point 0.5, it will be considered as a weak correlation. And then if we will have it as 0.6 to 1, we will have it as a strong negative correlation. Did you get it? So again, in our correlation, we can use this one in our analysis when we will have our research. That is, we are going to establish the relation of two variables. So for example, we are going to establish the relation of the mass of the body and the height. So there are two variables. What is the relation of the mass of the body to the what mass of the person to the height of the person? So ano yung gusto nga establish? So you will make use of the correlation formula. Now, as I have told you, I want you to use the second formula because it will be easier for you to apply the table because you can see the table as to how you will make the table later on. So although the first formula is still will give you the same answer, but when I will give the test, I want only one problem with two questions. I will be asking for the correlation and the regression. And if I will ask for these two questions as in terms of correlation and regression, ang correlation, if you will use the first formula, correct. Pero when you will go on to regression, you will draw another table nga mo fit in sa second equation. While if you will use the second formula, ang iyang table will fit into both. Ang table mo fit in sa correlation and at the same time, it will fit into our next lesson which is regression. That is why the reason nga I want you to use the second formula. Okay. Now supposing we had used already the formula and then we were able to get an answer of R is equal to -1. So, because it is -1, there is a correlation between the two variables because our value for the correlation for two variables is at a range of -1 to +1. So if your answer is -1, do not be afraid. Because sometimes when you will get a negative answer, di na mo paday ka, nahadlok mo sa negative. So your answer can be -1 or +1 or any value within -1 and +1. Okay, supposing our answer for the second equation is -1. So we can conclude that from out of the answer, we can say that we were able to get a positive correlation, negative correlation because our answer is negative. So with the answer of -1, we can say it is a negative correlation. But you will have to specify in terms of your variable. So it shows that there is a strong negative correlation between the mass of the person and the height. Kaya mo na ko ang correlation is -1 man. But if you will get +1, you will say that you were able to get, this is a positive correlation. But to give the decision, you will have to saying the mass of the person is positive one has a strong positive correlation with the height of the person. So adto na to, pero pag tanaw niyo sa solution na tanawa sa ninyo kung unsa ang correlation. So if you will get negative 0.3, so it is a negative correlation. It is a weak negative correlation. State what is given in the problem. Dili kaya taganang yung R is equal to negative 3. Nga, butangan na ikuan. Weak correlation. Mura mo nag-intrinsic nga analysis. Ya, wala na dayon. Wala na sumpay. So, after you will see it is a negative correlation, you give the decision with respect to the variables that is used in the problem. So, therefore, the mass of the person has a weak negative point has a weak negative correlation with respect to the height of the person. That is how you will make your analysis. Okay, so ang equations diya. So it is Derman and that one. It is in the second part. Okay. So what is person correlation? The correlation that I am discussing is called also a person correlation. That is specified in terms of the person who had formulated this one. So you have the potential probability and correlation. Okay, you have that one, huh? Now, we have here an example, karing ikaduha nga example, kay nanay tabulation. Now, you look at the second example. The given variables are x is equal to 4, 8, 12, and 16. So there are only 4 samples given. And the y is equal to 5, 10, 15, and 20. So duhara. So when you make your table, ang kato inyong sample sa x, you will have to place it 4, 8, 12, and 16. You place another column for the y and place the sample values, wherein you will have to add 3 more columns to satisfy the formula. Kaya in your 3 columns, in your columns or in your formula, you can see that there is a column for x, there is a column for y, there is a column for x squared, mo tong gi-square ninyo yung x. There is a column for y squared. So inyong gi-square ang inyong column y. And since you have also here you will have here xy, it is in the numerator n, then you will have the summation of xy. So you place a column for x times y para kung kompleto ang table, sayon ra pag-substitute sa formula. So you complete the table first. Ang given ana is always the variables given, that is you have the x variable and the y variable. So the x variable represents what will be given in the problem. So for example, you will have your scores will be your x variable. You are going to establish the correlation with respect to your grade scores and the equivalent grade of the score. So ang inyong score will be your x, ang inyong equivalent grade of the scores will be the y. So that represents the variable. Now take note that when you make your table so that it will be easy for you to substitute in your formula, you can see that nagikuha ang summation. So in the lower part, you can see that the summation of x is equivalent to 40. Then summation of y is equivalent to 50. So it will be easier for us to substitute it in the formula. Again, you will also get the summation of x squared, summation of y squared, and summation of xy. So I want to see this tabulation first before you will have your substitution of the values in the formula. And before I forget, sa inyo the quiz atong last time, so how many times did I told you ang katong problem is from the internet. Okay, pwede ra kumuha sa internet because I will not give a credit if you will just copy and then place the answer. Many of you just copy, substitute the values, but then you did not place the computed value. And then there were some who placed the substitution of the values. Ang uban wala gay yung substitution of the values. Kuan lang diretso lang sila o kana answer before I forget kay I told you already I will never give a credit. Okay, going back to that one, okay, para makitaan ninyo. Atong test na akong gihatag, that one. So, di gyud mo kanang wala mo follow instruction no? Wala man na mang minaw. Nya nagtuo man akong kuan akong tagaan og credit. So nangupya ra mo sa internet, mura ra mo wa mag-test. Oh, this is the number one, ha? Number one. In number one, wala na na ang sa number one. There are two questions. Ang two questions, you are going to solve for the problem using the formula. And then the second letter B is that you are going to solve the problem using the continuity correction factor. Okay, I will give an example as to you will have this. Ang kanilang mangita lang ko kuan nga unsa na dili na nako na iapil ang 1 minus ana ang formula lang sa kuan E. So you have this one. Kapila nako maghatag magsulti ninyo. I will just give an example for the E. Okay, you will have this one as wala na hindi ni kompleto nga kuan ako lang ipakita nga kuan. This is what I do not like. You will have here the E. Ang kuan ani ang iyang kuan it is raised to the power of ako na kuan na I will go back to this kay o kung malipay sa inyo daghang kaayong mong unsa na daghang kaayong wala gyud nako gi-credit why will I credit it no sa nangupya ra mo sa kuan nangupya ra mo sa internet hayahay ko kay butang ning answer thinking that gi kuan ako gi consider nako I am not considering that one so you are just copying. That's what I want you to see. Is A or the Euler's number that is minus m times x. Ang kani ang wa man ni maminaw. Yeah, sige nangupya ra. E minus m times x. Mao na sa numerator. Ang kuan. This will be equal to pwede ra na ninyo dili butangan og Euler's constant. Butangan na ninyo og E lang gihapon. You will have here the E. Pero you will substitute here in the you will have to substitute here your minus. So supposing your E is your M is example lang, just an example, point 0.08 and then it will be multiplied by the x. It will be multiplied by the x. So imagine ay uban nag-substitute correct. Ay uban nag-substitute. Pero ikutob ra ana. So you will have here the value of x is for example 20. So you will have it 20. Ana. So some substituted that one. Okay. Doon na say formula. Some has the formula. Yang gi-substitute ang value. Pagkahuman equals to the answer right away. So that is equals to the answer right away. Do you think I will check this one? How do I know nga nakahibaw mo pag-compute sa E or Euler's constant raised to the power of minus 0.820? So what I want to see is you will have here your E, the value, you will have here your E, pwede naman ikadiretso naman sa calculator, but then you will have the value of the upper part. This is not. You will have the value of the upper part. This is equal to E. Then you will have here the E. Then you will have here the numerator. You will have here the minus. Pila ang kuan product anang 0.08 times 20. Okay, I will just assume, hindi ako mag-multiply. I will have here, for example, 8 times 20, that is 16 lang. Ako libot na 16, I do not know what is the answer. So you will have that one, just an example. I want to see this one. And then, I want the equivalent of this one equal to, pilay answer anang Euler's constant raised to the power of 16, your computed value of that one. So you will have your computed value of that. Then before you will have your final answer. Mo na akong kinahanglan. Dili kay tagaan kog magic. Hapit 80% of you ang answer magic mao na. Ang uban ay formula. Walay substitution ani. 0.0820. Pagkahuman sa formula, diretsog answer wrong. Pagkahuman sa formula, gibutang og 0.08 times 20, diretsog answer. I did not give a credit to that one. How many times did I told you? Many times. Nya katong kanang nagingon ana nangupya ra thinking that attached na yun, thinking that correct. It is wrong without the substitution of the values. Ang uban kay y formula, substitution of the values, diretso, nya final answer. There is no credit for your solution like that. You should know. Kay karon sad kinahanglan sa ni inaasa ko kinahanglan ng tan-awon ani. Daghan kay mo 80% are just placing kuan answers. Di magic lang uroy. Kapila na ko magsulti ninyo. How will I know? Huh? How will I know? Now, you know how to compute Euler's constant raised to the power of minus 0.08 times 20. How will I know? How will I know nga if you will have 5 factorial? What is the answer of 5 factorial? Because there are some nga naay factorial. Pareha itong inyong binomial. You will place a factorial. How will I know nga if you will have 4 factorial? What is the equivalent of 4 factorial? Tagaan ako diretsog answer. Kamay check sa inyong papel. Nagahi man mag-oo, you can see the consequences. Your scores will be very low. And then if you will not get the average for the finals, ayaw ko pangutan ang anong nangahagbong mo. Kaya di man mo follow instructions. Why is it that some can follow? Oh. Why is it that 20% were able to follow? Ngano man more, 80% did not follow. Magtuman mo sa inyo gusto thinking that if you are doing it to some instructors, nga ang inyong final answer, korekan lang, do not do it to my class. Kay bao ko ninyo, kaya ang uban, I know, check ka na din. Ang final answer, correct, check. I will not do it that way. I will not be wasting my time checking your paper. I-correct lang akong dili insakto nga pagka-solve. Kapila na ko magsulti nyo, gikan sa sinugdanan, hapit na lang ta mag-finals. You are not following instructions. So meaning, nga mas maayun mo, you are following your own. So kay mag-follow mo sa inyong kaugalingon, kamoy himo sa inyong passing grade. Kay you will never pass in my subject if you will have to do it that way. Hindi ko, ano mo ko, mo consider, I do not consider such thing as that one. Magtuman mo sa inyong gusto. Magtuman mo sa inyong gusto. O kamo may mag-compete sa inyong grado, di man ako. Hindi mo istrikta niya. The way I am telling you is so that you will know how many students do not know how to use the calculator. Unsa naman mo nga, you had passed it in your senior high. You know how to use your calculator. Nga nung di man mo makahibaw. It is an application of what you learn in your senior high. So you should know. And you should know how to follow instruction. And you should know how to use your calculator. Dili kay ako inyong pasanginlan nga strikta nga dili mo kapasar. I am teaching you how to pass the subject. Hindi ka mag-magic lang ta. We are not studying to be magicians. Mauna. So going back to our lesson. So we have that one. After the substitution of the values, you have our example. So mauna sa atong example, you have there the table. So mausan ni siya. Before I will check your substitution of the values, I want to see the table. Muna nga kinahanglan makakita ko anang sa lower part nga na is summation of x, because the summation of x is what will be substituted to your formula. Kung wala summation of x, we have there, you have summation of x. So our summation of x is 40. So before you can substitute the 40 there, I should see it in the table. So ang inyong n is, you have how many data? You have 1, 2, 3, 4. So your n is 4. Then your summation of xy, you just look at your table. You have your summation of xy 600 minus summation of x 40 multiplied by summation of y, pila na? 50? Is that 50? Okay. All over the denominator, you will have the radical sign. Then inside the radical sign, you will have therefore times the summation of x squared. You look at your summation of x squared. That is summation of x squared is 480 minus summation of x. Ang inyong summation of x 40 raised to the power of 2. Kaya naraba mo malipat anang summation of x squared and summation of x raised to the power of 2. Then multiplied by the number again 4, summation of y squared. You look at your summation of y squared, 750 minus summation of y, which is only 50 raised to the power of 2. Kung dili na ninyo ipakita ang inyong mga summation of x below, I will not check your substitution of the values sa formula kay ngano mandiin agikan. So if you cannot show me the table. So therefore, the table will show the components of the formula so that I can check on the substitution and I can check your solution. So what I mean by that one, if you will have this formula after the substitution of the values, you will have the substitution there of the values numerator. Kinahanglan ibutang na ninyo pilay kato akong gi-substitute. So substitution of the values. Pagkahuman sa substitution of the values, you give me the result of the numerator, pila na ang summation of xy, minus pila na ang summation of x times summation of y. All over the radical sign, square root of, pila na yung summation of x squared, minus summation of x squared, then multiplied by summation, kinahanglan step by step, kung pila na ka step, until finally you will have to give me the answer of the problem. So you will have it step by step. Dili kay inyo lang magikon, gi-magic na kay gihunghungan mo sa inyong guardian angel. Amot lang angel ba ka? So mauna. So it will be step by step. You will have several steps. Ang kanang sud sa radical sign ay kinahanglan makakita ko pilay sud sa radical sign before it will be extracted. Before it will be extracted. So you will have many steps before you will have your final answer because the problem is very easy. So it is only substitution of the values. You have simple operations, wala gyud kanang kuan, walay calculus. So there is no reason why you cannot get the answer. Umana, as long as it is step by step, ayaw kong tagaig final answer. Because if you will have the substitution of the values correct, unya na kausara ka step nya answer day, I will not give a credit. And also I want to see the table. Okay, so sa naman tanan, I want to know the final answer di pilay answer ani. Try to solve and give me the answer kung pila ato nakuha nga R. How much is the R or the correlation coefficient? Pilay atong R. Try to solve it. Everything is there. So pilay answer. Everything is there. Pilay answer. You raise your hand. Okay, Mercado. What is the answer?
Positive 1.
Di ko kadungog.
Positive 1.
Negative 1, positive 1.
Positive 1.
Positive 1. Okay, I will ask for another one. Anybody from the group? Anybody from the group? Or from the stage? Amo answer ka. If not, I will ask for those who are not on stage. Okay, Fernandez.
Positive 1, miss.
Okay, so the same. So we have here Mercado and Fernandez. So our answer is positive 1. So that is the correlation coefficient of this. Now take note that we are establishing the relation here. Kaning gihatag ani ron kay establish the relation only of x and y. Wala specify ang variable. So therefore, after getting the answer of correlation, a positive one, we can say that it is what? A positive correlation. But you will have to make your decision. So you will say you were able to get a positive correlation. Positive, unsa man klase nga positive correlation, you were able to get out of the answer, you were able to get a strong, kay one man siya, positive one, strong, positive correlation. So how will you give your decision? How will you give your decision nga? If you had analyzed the R is equals to positive 1, when you will have here it is a strong positive correlation, we can see ka ato variable x ag y naman. We can see therefore that x is what? So may yung answer, yung decision. X is what? On positive correlation, remember that if you will have a positive correlation, the variables will be, the graph is directed upwards. So in your algebra, you know that if the graph is directly upwards, upwards to the right, unsa man nga relation ang inyong ma-establish. So what happened to your variable? If you will have a strong positive correlation nga ang inyong graph is upwards to the right, unsa man inyong ma-analyze na in your algebra. Siya ma-analyze niyo sa algebra if you will have that one, that graph nga, kuan, going upwards to the right. Algebraically, yun sa may inyong ma-analyze, ano? If you will have an upward, a graph which is upwards to the right. What happens to the values of that? Dili na itong decision ha, I am just analyzing it in terms of algebra. What happens to the variables if you will have a graph going upwards to the right? Algebraically, mura man magway algebra, oy. O di mo makakwag algebra? Na algebra sa senior high, na algebra sa kuan high kanang sana from first year to unsa na fourth year. Before you will have it in the senior high. Unsa man, how will you analyze the variables with respect to a graph that is upwards to the right? What will that graph show? Okay, Ninira.
Try ko miss,
Oh,
since the linear is going to the upward right, the slope is going positive side.
hindi, how do you analyze nga no unsa man na lagi nga upward to the right? Unsa man positive lagi na siya? In your algebraically, how will you analyze the variables? If you will see a graph nga going upwards to the right, how will you? Okay, Avenido. How will you describe algebraically? I'm not asking statistics. I'm asking for algebraically. How will you analyze the variables if you will get a graph going upwards to the right?
We can therefore say, Miss, that variables are independent to each other.
Adili, uy. Describe the variables. Describe the variables bang katong di inyong gi-graph. What happens to the variables? Take note that in this case, we are not specifying the variables statistically. We are just representing our variables as x and y. So forget about statistics. I want to know to recall your algebra. Now if you are going to make a graph na after making the graph, ang inyong makita nga graph is a straight line going upwards to the right algebraically. Unsa man inyong pag-analyze before? How will you analyze the x and the y variables if the graph that you are making is upwards to the right? Mao na kung buti pasabot. Not in terms of our lesson. It is in terms of algebra, because if you will graph the data, it will give you a graph that is going upwards to the right. So man. Sa inyong graph ba kaniadto sa algebra? How will you analyze the variables kung makata mo na? Okay, Fernandez.
As the x variable increases, the y also increases. Therefore, they have a direct relationship.
Okay, so in your algebra, you were making a graph. And usually, ang atong gigamit sa algebra, x and y axis ra, di ba? So we have x variables and y variables in terms of the xy axis. So that is correct there for Fernandez. If you will obtain a graph na straight line going up to the right, it means that if the x variable increases, the y variable also increases. Kay kung wala na sila magkuyog, if both did not increase, dili man mo kakuha ng straight line graph upwards to the right, your algebra. So since you were able to get a graph that is going upwards to the right, nga straight line, we can say therefore that the variable x, kung unsa man kay inyong variable x, is increasing while the other variable y is also increasing. Now, when you state it in terms of our data analysis, I told you already, wala siya mohatag specified graph, so we will be mentioning x and y. So how will you make a conclusion na if we know that that graph is strong positive correlation, what can we say about the x and the y? Inyo ang conclusion diri. Therefore, we can say that the x variable is what?
Directly proportional to the y variable, ma'am.
Oh, directly proportional. Kaya di same man. So, it is strongly a strong positive correlation. So, therefore, when it is strong positive correlation, our x is strongly related with respect to y, wherein our x is directly proportional to the y. So, if ang atong data mass ba na ron o height, we can say that the mass of the body is directly strongly positive strongly as a strong positive correlation with respect to the height, and your mass, because it is strongly correlated, is directly proportional to the height. So mao na to statistically. Did you get it? Dili ka inyo lang ko ninyo ha, R is equals to plus 1, strong positive correlation. Imo nyo, your answer is murag ininsik nga pagka-answer. So you should place first, that is your analysis kung pagkakita ninyo nga ang inyong answer sa R is plus 1. So it is plus positive correlation. Pero kay 1 man ang value, it is strong positive correlation. Now, since our X is represented by mass, for example, so we can say that the mass is strongly correlated with the height, kung mautoy problem. And since it is strongly correlated, our mass is directly proportional to the height of the person. Ana, paghimog conclusion. Kung wa mo maminaw, kuto bro mo diri. Sige. Now, you can see in your LMS, there is another problem wherein ako nang i-arrange daan, find the value of the correlation coefficient from the following table. So I am giving you the different ages and then the glucose level of such age. Wherein if you have, your age is 43, ang imong glucose level is Y. 21, 60, 65 ang glucose level. So you have the age and the glucose level. So you are going to find the correlation coefficient using the correlation coefficient formula and get the value of R. So out of the R value, you can determine whether it is a positive correlation or negative correlation. So that is if it is kind of positive or negative. And then you try to specify the correlation between the two variables, whether it is strongly correlated, positive or negative, or whether it is, there is a correlation pero weak ang iyang correlation. It is weak correlation because it can be positive, negative also. So it can be positive nga weak correlation, negative weak correlation, strong positive correlation, weak negative correlation. Is that clear to everybody? And then after that, you will have to place the decision as to what is the relation of of the age of the person with respect to the glucose level of the person. So the age, you're going to establish the relation of the age with respect to the glucose level of his blood. So we are establishing age and glucose level. So it will be the same with this one. And then so you will have to, this will be your, what is this? Your assignment. Pero this is only number one. Kaya sa'yo na ako naman ang sana. I will give you an additional to this for Wednesday, an assignment. So 1 and 2 na, that is number 1. Then I will give you another number 2 for the data. That is for Wednesday. Now, pagka Tuesday, Monday of next week, dili sa ko maghatag og test ninyo ani because I will have to discuss regression because we will be using the same problem and see the relation of the correlation with the regression formula. So you will have your assignment on Wednesday. Pagka Monday of next week, we'll go on to regression. Then after I will finish the regression, that is the time that we will have the test about this one. And remember that for the test, I will be giving you only one problem, but then it will be solving for the correlation and regression. Is that clear to everybody? This is only number 1 of your assignment on Wednesday. I will place number 2 and also for the attachment of the assignment. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes,
Pagka
ma'am.
next ko, kay happy ta magud atong, kuan ka sa batong finals, diba? We have made 23 now, 25. Yung pagkakuan, June, so you'll have June, we'll have regression. Then I think that will be the last topic for the finals. No? Okay, tanaw na nato. Kung dili na, napatay time, we'll go on to the central limit theorem. Pero kanin, it is important in the research because there are some who are analyzing their qualitative data in terms of the numerical value na quantitative na, pero ang ilang decision was based on the correlation coefficient. So establishing the relation of one variable to another variable. Because when you make your research, it is either using the correlation coefficient or just making use of the weighted mean. Ora na inyong pilian kay research nga basic pa man. So when you establish the relation of the variables, it can be weighted mean or correlation coefficient. Dili ka maglisod-lisod mo. Unya na mo, pag lisod-lisod, then you go on to the next step. You will go on to your FISIB. Okay, any more questions, class? Any question about this? Muna ha, ako ibutang ninyo, kinanglan ang fourth table with the summations para mo fit in sa formula. Ayaw kog majiki og solution. You will have the formula and the substitution of the values, then answer right away. Kinanglan makakita ko sa computed value nga gi-substitute sa every step of the solution. Kaya di ko gusto anang diretso lang answer. Kahibaw ka nini, multiply sa sa calculator o nangayo lang ni sa answer. Ang katong kargado gyud nga dunay sa ato inyong quiz, kargado nga ang uban nga y formula diretso lang substitute niya. Walay solution. Then you have the final answer. I know nga you are just asking for the answer. Ang kana magsunod kay attach parehas gud og solution. Kuwang na lang ang pangana nakuan. Basta copying everything. Basta ang sayo everything. Okay, wala na questions?
Wala na, ma'am.
Any questions, class? So kani maguni sa atubangan no ka stage. Sometimes when I check the papers, kani ray makakuha. Ang usually ang mga when I am checking, I can think of those who are on stage. Kani mga pangana maura ni makasolve. Yang uban ay mag-solve og lain, gikopya sa lain, this is the wrong solution. Ay talagi mangupya okay rin ako mangupya mo basta ang inyong gikopya correct. Dili kay mangupya mo o wrong kay mosamot na noon og ka sayop inyong kuan. Ito sayang kapit na ang finals. Yeah. You will go on to the next level of your course. Magbong kita sa hinlan. Oh, any more questions, class? That will be all for this afternoon. Wala, nagatog na mo. Lagyan niya, di malingog. Kapoy ba yan ninyo eh? Di man mo matingog. Ang tuwa lang tagwa mo na minaw.
Excuse me, miss. Follow-up question lang ba?
Oh, sige.
Unsay formula gamito na mo ini ka kuan Wednesday, miss?
Kita man ni question? Kita ni question?
Ako, Miss. Avenido, Miss.
Abinido. So, otro po, ikaw naka sa stage. Pero wala ka maminaw.
Wala, Miss. Karat akong internet, Miss. Di kay maklaro yung tingog
Okay.
niya, Miss.
Ako ang giingon, you have two equations.
Yes, Miss.
Kung magamit sa first equation, you will arrive at the same answer with the second equation, right? So, maski asa, ana. Maski asa, you can make use of any formula. But, moadto man
Okay.
ko tag next topic, nga regression.
So, ang
When
second
you
equation,
go
may
on,
gamiton.
dili, that is why, ha, paminaw sa, we will go on to regression. Ang regression is related to the given of the correlation. So para mamubo ang inyong solusyon, ang atong himuon na lang ang atong himuon gamitong formula ang second na lang kay ang atong table magamit man sa regression. Kay ang inyong first formula is based from another table, di ba? Ang iyang component dili ana summation of x bar then y bar ana. Mo to inyong first formula? Correct dili? So ang katong inyong formula nga first formula kinahanglan man sad mo maghimo og table nga mo reflect sa components sa formula. And when I give the test, inyo tong himuan og kanang table ang inyong formula nga gigamit sa first nga formula, ang iyang table dili magamit sa component aning second formula. So ang mahitabo ana kung kato inyong gamiton when you go on to the regression kay usara may problem akong ihatag ining test, when you go on to regression maghimo na sa mog table para magamit ninyo sa regression. So mintras if you will use the second equation, you have one table, two solutions, correlation and regression. If you will use the first formula, duha ka table, one for correlation and one for regression. Kasabot? Oh, nakasabot na ba?
Yes,
Do
Miss.
you understand? Okay. Unya, kanang, is that clear to everybody? Is that clear to everybody? Oh, pwede rin masigon
Yes,
sa basta.
Miss.
When you go on to regression, maghimo na sa muglaing table. Samot ang kadugay. Samot ang ingon. Miss, wa ako ka attach. Kay nawagtang akong internet. Attachment kin mawagtang internet. Ori yun mga rason pero. Okay, wala na may question. That's all for this afternoon. So you will have your exam assignment next meeting pero dungagan ko na kay mubuo ra kay nastanan. And also the assignment that you will be solving for or the katong simple problem na to mao ra tayo atong gamiton sa regression para there is no waste of time. Oh, wala na question?
And so far, Miss.
None so far. Okay. So none so far. Remember that you will have to place your formula, your substitution of the values, your computed values before the final answer. Okay. So wala na question? Okay, goodbye class.
Bye, Miss. Thank you, Miss.
Bye,